We talked a lot about hope in this conversation. Zooming out, what gives you hope about the future of this whole thing, of humanity, not just the United States, of us humans on Earth?
So why am I center left and not center right? It gets to that question. So you look at the polling, not just here in America, but in almost any country, and it almost always breaks out to 2/3 or 1/3, right? 2/3 of the people say, let's be empathetic, let's share, let's do equality, justice, let's be fair, right? 1/3 goes, no, me. Okay. That's just the nature of humanity. And usually the same third goes, no change. And the other 2/3 go, well, some change, right? So, because if you don't do any change, you're never going to get to the right answer. For the wisdom of the crowd to work, for free markets to work, for everything to work, you have to keep changing because the times change and the culture changes and the situation changes, right? So that's why there's amendments in the Constitution, because you need to be able to change the document from time to time. Be careful with it, right? But you need to allow for an avenue for change. So now, why does the 1/3 keep winning in so many different places? Because they have more money and power. And by the way, if you're more selfish, you're more likely to get more money and power, right? And I wish that weren't the case, but it is. And these are not blanket rules. They're on average. So that third winds up winning in so many circumstances. But the bottom line is we are a species that requires consent. So, I mean, I'm a stone cold atheist. So I don't think we're kind of like apes. I think we are apes. Okay. And so, and all the scientists out there are going, well, of course we are. Everyone else is going, that's crazy. Okay. So when you look at it as a species, different species react in different ways. Snakes have no empathy because it's not in their DNA. And that's why we have a sense of what a snake does, right? So for good news is for higher level apes like us, bonobos, chimpanzees, and humans, we all roughly want consent. So a chimpanzee, for example, has a violent, reputation, and they are violent. And unfortunately, we're pretty close to them. But what people don't know is a leader doesn't win through violence, especially for bonobos. They win by picking lice off of other chimpanzees, by going and doing favors, going to a hunt, getting food, and giving it to someone else. Because what they're gathering is the consent of the governed. Mm-hmm. And that's how you become the alpha. You don't do it through physical dominance, you do it through consent. So that's how we're hardwired. That's in our DNA. That 2/3 in the long run will win. And we will have empathy, we will have change, and that's the hope that we're all looking for.
Hope has got the numbers, it seems like.
Yeah. And in fact, one more thing, Lex.
Yes.
Look at history. Hope and change always win. And so, again, conservatives, don't catch feelings. There's a need for conservatives because you have to balance things out. If you just had, even though wonderful 2/3, that still wouldn't be the ideal system. You need a Winston Churchill if you're in the middle of World War II. You need someone to say regulating, 6 inspections of the elevators is too many, right? So you need that balance, and conservatives have a role, and it's a really important role. But having said that, they're assigned to losing throughout history because they're fighting on losing ground. A conservative says no change, but the world is constantly changing, so they're destined to lose. That's why the founding fathers won against the British monarchy. That's why the civil rights movement won. They didn't win overnight. It took them 100 years to get equal rights, let alone pass slavery, right? So we won on women's rights. We won on gay rights. We keep winning. But every snapshot in time makes it feel like we're losing. There's a bad guy in charge. We aren't living under corporate rule, etc. But in the long tide of history, change always wins. So the empathetic, generally speaking, left wing, but again, don't worry about the titles, right? People get obsessed with the labels. The 2/3 that's empathetic, that includes a lot of right wingers, right? You win at the end in history every single time. So we fight forward. We're tough when we need to be. We need that willpower to win any fight, right? But we're civil and respectful to the other side because they are us. So progressives all the time, we say, look, and this is like the ending of my book, which is for conservatives, you have a lot of empathy for inside the wagons. So conservatives are great to their family, generally speaking, to their community, to their church, to anyone that's inside the wagons. But they set up electric fences and barbed wire around their wagons. So if you're on the outside, you're the others, and you're going to get electrified. And it's constantly zzz, 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 right? And so I like to think the left wing has wider wagons. So we view the world as more us and not you. But the good news of that is, if we win, we're not going to do Medicare for only the left, right? We're going to do Medicare for all. You're all going to get universal health care. We're going to do higher wages for all. The right wing is not going to be left out. And Lex, I'm going to tell you a fun story. It's about my family, and I'm sure that parts of it are apocryphal because it's from like 500 years ago. But it gives you a sense of the old Mark Twain quote, if it's really Mark Twain's, of change happens really gradually and then all of a sudden. So my mom's last name in Turkish is Yavaşça. It means slowly. It's a weird name even in Turkish. Mm-hmm. And so one day we're walking past the mosque in Istanbul when I'm a kid, and it says on the mosque, Yavaşça. We're like, what is this? Okay. So it's a small little mosque. We go inside, and my dad starts asking their mom questions. Okay. So he says, why is the mosque named that? And he said, well, you don't know? And because my dad said my wife's last name is Yavaşça. He's like, oh my God. And he's like, your ancestor was the admiral of the Ottoman Navy when they conquered Constantinople. Okay. So Grandpa from 500-600 years ago came up with the idea. So you can't ever conquer Constantinople because there's a giant chain underneath the Bosphorus. All the ships get stuck on the chain. There's cannons on both sides. Half the ancient navies in the world are at the bottom of the Bosphorus, right? So it hasn't been conquered in over 1,000 years. Nobody thinks it can be conquered. Grandpa comes up with the idea of, why don't we build giant wooden planks over land and grease them and pass our fleet over land onto the other side? Everybody goes, because whenever anybody proposes a new idea, no matter how logical it is, they go, oh, it's impossible. No way it's going to work. Oh, you're crazy. This is an unconquerable city. What are you guys even doing? Every day, Mehmet the Conqueror comes up to Grandpa and says, all right, how's your plan to do this project going? And Grandpa says, slowly. And he names him Commander Slowly. Yeah. And one night, after the whole thing's done, they pass the entire Ottoman fleet over the land, wind up in the middle of the Bosphorus, and the Holy Roman Empire concedes. They surrender. Because change happens really gradually, and then all of a sudden.
Good story. Well, Cenk, thank you for fighting for that change for many years now, for over 2 decades now. And thank you for talking today.
Appreciate it, Lex. Thank you for having the conversation.